And welcome back to another episode of Devil Dash. This is episode 27 now, I believe. And we got a pretty good show. Unfortunately, college basketball season is over. But the good news is we had a Final Four to remember. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about that UCLA Gonzaga game. And, where does it rank in terms of all-time games that, we're both 22 years old, so we don't have, a vast knowledge of, things that happened 50, 60, 70 years ago and stuff like that. But we're going to try to get into where it ranks all time because it was one hell of a game. We're going to be talking about ASU and their transfers, and, they now have 4 transfers, and then how they potentially stack up next year. So with the rest of the Pac-12. So Josh, we're going to start off with that UCLA Gonzaga game. It was on Saturday. That was one of the better games I've seen in a while. I know. I think I tweeted it out. That was the best game for me since Villanova UNC in the championship about 5 years ago. What do you think of that game? The clutch moments by Suggs, by Juzang, by just UCLA played pretty much a perfect game and still lost. What do you think? What do you think of that game? Just, give me your breakdown.
Yeah, well, props to UCLA first and foremost. They really went from, the first 4 to the Final Four, and that's something that has rarely been done, let alone a buzzer beater in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're not going to forget the name Johnny Juzang. That guy is something special of a player. I think, he definitely made his presence known in this tournament, and, if he goes to the draft, maybe not. If he stays to the team, he's going to be a true leader for them next year. And I think that kind of charges over into a different topic that we'll get into later. But some different controversial way too early rankings. But I was watching the game at home with my family because I flew back to California for Easter, and I'll tell you right now, my family's not really basketball. They're not really avid basketball fans or basketball watchers of the sport. But we saw the last 8 minutes of that game, and we were all on our feet at that shot. Crazy, one of the best games I have seen.
It was one of those games where I was rooting for UCLA. I was back in the pack, obviously. But it was just one of those games where it was so fantastic that it was so fitting to have that end, and it was such an amazing shot at the buzzer to win that it was like, wow, I got up out of my seat and was like, whoa, like I didn't care. Like, obviously, if you're a UCLA fan, you're gutted right there to play such a good game and then lose on a shot. There's really, you could have played a little better defense, but you don't expect anyone to make that. So it's really gutting, but I was rooting for UCLA pretty hard. I'll admit this up front, I'm not a huge Gonzaga fan in general, and I wanted them to lose. And then when they hit it, I was just hats off to both those teams. And it looks like after the game, we should have expected it, as we're going to kind of give a list in a second. But a game, one of the better games of all time. Gonzaga came out the next game and they were flat, and I think a big reason for that is we talked about it in a few shows ago. Their closest game was West Virginia, and they won by 9 points. That was their closest game. So, Gonzaga hadn't been punched in the mouth all season. UCLA came out and punched them in the mouth. And, I'm not saying Baylor didn't play close to a flawless game as well, but Gonzaga from the opening tip-off, they were down 9-0 before Kispert hit that 3, and they were out of it. Really, from the opening tip, it was over. The energy that Baylor brought and they had, Gonzaga left it all on the court against UCLA, and I think it was one of the games for the ages.
Oh, yeah. That totally makes sense when you put it like that.
Mm-hmm.
They really just didn't have that fight left in them against this Baylor team that was obviously, shooting their minds out of their minds and, just going crazy in the gym. But, man, I was really happy with what we saw in the Final Four game between Gonzaga and UCLA compared to, the national championship. Like you said, that was just, I truly was not really entertained. I was entertained by, Butler draining all the threes and just commanding the team. But, man, I wanted that feeling that I got Saturday night. You know what I mean? That's what I was looking forward to on Monday.
We should have seen this coming because it was one of the best games that, like we said, we've ever seen. And then this game was so hyped up. It's the second time ever that 5 AP All-Americans, first, second, or third team were in the same game. 3 for Gonzaga, 2 for Baylor. It was only the second time ever. It was the national championship. The teams one team was going for an undefeated perfect season, which hasn't been done since Bob Knight, Indiana. The other team only had 2 losses. Like, this game was so hyped up, and it was coming off one of the best games of all time. So our expectations were already up here. If it wasn't up here, everything was going to feel short. So, I know it was 10 points at halftime, but the national championship pretty much seemed over. They were up like 18 to 20 points in the first half and then really stepped on their throat in the second half. And man, Arkansas put up a pretty good fight against Baylor. And that was the reason I think it is, like I said, Gonzaga didn't have that dog left in them at the end. They looked drained. Arkansas is another one of those teams. It's like they're not overly talented, but they're really scrappy. They're really athletic, and they run the floor. And I think that was really what Baylor did. But Baylor was just a little bit better than Arkansas, more talented.
Yeah, and shed light on some of the talent and the athleticism that was in that game. I don't know. I was on Twitter very fast after that game, after that Suggs buzzer beater, and that kid was an athlete. I saw he had like a ton of football.
Yeah, to Michigan State. Like, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, some couple SEC schools. Like, dude, it just must be nice, man, to have those just like
athletic
paths just lay it out for you and just be like, I'm gonna go. And
like the Kyler Murray.
Yeah, obviously he made a great decision. I mean, Baylor was a different beast, but where does that UCLA
pedigree,
Gonzaga, just buzzer beater, just after the Juzang tying it up to where does that rank in your all-time games? Or give me just a couple of your favorite games.
I know we talked about this a little bit. I think we both agree that the Villanova UNC game is I think the best game of all time. It was the only buzzer beater in national championship history. So right off the bat, how do you beat that? And then also, people forget, but I know we saw the clip. It was just a 5-year anniversary a few days ago. But people forget that Marcus Page for USC, he hit that double clutch left-handed 3-pointer to then tie the game with like 2 seconds to go. People forget about that shot because then it was then fouled by a buzzer beater for the national championship. So I think we both agree that Villanova game was probably the best game of all time in our opinion. For me, my number 2 is the Duke Kentucky game with the famous Christian Laettner shot. If you know basketball, you know the shot. Inbounded by we talked about one of my favorite players, Grant Hill, who was known for his chest passes, kind of like Kevin Love-esque. And Grant Hill, full court pass. Laettner caught it, hit the shimmy, and drained the shot to win the game. I think that was probably one of the most important games growing up. It was 2 blue bloods, which I think obviously UCLA and Gonzaga, I think, are both blue bloods. UCLA was an 11 seed, and I don't know. I think Duke and Kentucky, those are 2 of that's Alabama, LSU, that's just in name the best. And then I think this game fell third for me. There was 20 lead changes, like 13 tie games, a buzzer beater in overtime. I think this ranks number 3 all time, and it's really not that far behind that Duke Kentucky game. But what about you?
Yeah, I think we're both in agreement on the UNC Villanova game. Still, I don't care what you say. You can tell me that the actual buzzer beater shot to win it was more clutch, but the off balance
double pump,
3 from down here, man. That was the most clutch shot I think I've seen, since maybe the Jalen Suggs. And that's where my number 2 comes in. I think that this Gonzaga UCLA game comes in at number 2 on my board. I think the big factor for that is because it's fresh. It's super fresh in my brain. And, maybe I spent that whole moment with my family. It was a pretty special game. And then I think at number 3 might have to be I'm from Bakersfield. I got a little LA blood in me. I like the Magic Johnson and his Spartans dropping 109 on Larry Bird, that Boston beast that he wasn't yet, but was soon to be. And
Indiana State, which I think is crazy that one person was good enough to make Indiana State good.
Yeah, I just think that was just one of the all-time great games in the Final Four. But something that makes that game so special that you definitely didn't realize it at the time, but like
Larry Bird versus Magic Johnson. Those aren't two, like, I'm pretty sure that was a national championship too, not just a Final Four game. But you don't realize that those are two of maybe not just all-time players, but two of maybe 15 all-time NBA players going at each other in college. Like, you don't realize it at the time, but man, that game must have been something special, to see that. So this game it was so special. And one of the stats, I brought up the lead changes, the tie games. I think the biggest lead of the game was like Gonzaga led by 7 and UCLA led by 6. Like, that was a nail biter from the very beginning. I remember, I think Gonzaga went up like 2-0 and then 5-2. And I looked at my friend and I was like, oh, it's over. Gonzaga's going to run away with it. They just scored 2 baskets in a row, write them off. And the most interesting stat to me is, I want to see if someone out there can fact check this. UCLA shot like 57.8% in a Final Four game. That I'm not even going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say that's the best shooting percentage in a loss in a Final Four championship game ever. I would love to see, as a team, what the second best shooting percentage in a loss is. I'd be willing to bet it's maybe even 10% lower than that. Like, maybe even 45, 12 to 15% lower than that, because if you shoot that well, you do not lose games. Yeah. So that's just off the top of my head. We do have to move on. So we're going to talk more about ASU stacking up against the Pac-12, but this is going to be more about, Pac-12. We're going to get into ASU more specifically next segment. But there's an article I saw yesterday that I wanted to bring up. Obviously, UCLA went on a very special run, and we were all super proud, and how much money they made. The Pac-12 was awesome for ASU. CBS Sports in the preseason polls, for way too early preseason polls, we always see these right after the national championship. They come out. I'm going to give you the top 5 here. Baylor, the defending national champs, come in at number 5. It says they're expected to lose Davion Mitchell and Jared Butler to the NBA draft, but still have a good core. And they now have that experience of winning national championship. Number 4, Duke, not a surprise. They're going to have 5-star recruits that you've never heard, but end up going top 5 in the NBA. Big surprise. Number 3, Alabama. Alabama is interesting because they're saying they're returning 4 of the top 7 scorers on a team that won the regular season SEC title and the SEC tournament. So he has them at number 3. I like that pick as a good dark horse for next year. Alabama should be really good. And Nate Oates, the guy that's succeeded Bobby Hurley at Buffalo, and then he got hired at Alabama. So that's pretty cool. And number 2 has Gonzaga. He says, Suggs and Ayayi are probably both entering the draft, but they're adding 2 5-star prospects in Chet Holmgren, who's he's going to be, I hate that he's going to Gonzaga because he's one of my favorite players that I've ever seen, like, followed recruiting wise. He's like a 7-foot white guy that plays point guard, and he's really cool. Like, he's fancy with it as a 7-footer. He's awesome. But he's in the class of 2021, so he has them as the number 2, and he's saying they should be another Final Four contender. Obviously, Mark Few, one of the better coaches in the country, but number 1 in the country next year in the way too early polls, UCLA Bruins. This is what he says. This is what he says about that. I'm not too thrilled about that, but he says every meaningful player who helped the Bruins make the Final Four is currently projected to come back on campus. Among them, NCAA tournament star Johnny Ju. UCLA will add 5-star prospect Peyton Watson, and should have all the pieces necessary to win a title. I wouldn't be so certain that Juzang's coming back. I think his stock just went like this, not even like this, just basically rocket shipped straight up in the air. And it was really incredible. I wouldn't be too sure he's coming back. So before you put them at number 1 in the country, you got to remember this is a team that lost 10 games last year. They got hot, but every year in the Pac-12, it's a dogfight. U of A is going to be a lot better next year. They're not going to have that postseason ban, and they have another top 10 recruiting class coming in. So I would not be so fast. Sorry, I just read a lot right there. What do you think of this list?
I mean, yeah, I can see it. I mean, look, everyone's going to have their hot takes. I mean, looking at are those the records or like odds for them to win the title?
So that's last year. This list right here, it shows last year's record, and it shows what they were in the last article this guy wrote. He has how what they changed because he wrote this before a lot of people like committed for the NBA draft and stuff like that. So he has improvement and down. So last time he wrote an article on next year's rankings, UCLA was projected to be 27th. And now he says they jumped 26 spots, and then Illinois with Cockburn and Dosu both going pro, they dropped 23 spots and are not going to be very good. So it's on CBS Sports. If you just look up CBS Sports 2022 power or college rankings, it's right there. It's a really interesting read if you do like college basketball.
Yeah,
but
I think it's one of those, early college basketball. Take a look, make some predictions. It's prediction time. I mean, this is going to get some headway on the internet, I guess you could say, maybe on Twitter,
Yeah.
People are going to laugh at and poke fun at a dude who's saying UCLA is going to be the number one team next year. I mean, even if they are returning, every single person on their team and, they're all going to put on like 15 pounds and grow like 4 or 5 inches, there's still you have to make it out of the Pac-12, man. If you really don't know what the Pac-12 is like until you've watched it for 3 years.
And they weren't that dominant this year.
No, I mean,
Would they get a 4 seed?
And Oregon were the truly dominant teams this year, and I mean,
and Colorado.
That was shown by them getting the seeding that they did in the tournament and the NCAA tournament as well. And I mean, Final Four or first 4 to Final Four, man. That you're basically saying like, yeah, this team is going to be the same team as last year, and they're going to do that run again. You know what I mean? I think this was just this will be adjusted.
So we talked about how you said kind of recency bias, how the Jalen Suggs shot in the game that was kind of fresh in your memory, and that's why I would love to see 2 weeks before the season we'll know
stars come rolling in.
We'll know the actual Kentucky's ranked at 14 right now. But before the rankings actually come out, a week before when they're projecting, see if those goggles have wiped off a little bit. Remember, this is a team that went 22-10, not a fit, like obviously great run, but what are you going to put Oral Roberts in the top 15 too if Max Asmus comes back? So it's like, no, you got to have those recency goggles off your face. I think UCLA maybe being 10-15, that's very reasonable. But if you ask anyone, I don't think they're projected to be the favorite to win next year. But I do want to cover what other Pac-12 teams are in this article. So obviously UCLA has one, and then not for a while he has Arizona coming in at 21. This is what he says. Most of the pieces that helped Arizona finish in the top 30 at Ken Palm are expected to be back. As long as Jay Akinjo withdraws from the NBA draft, kind of like we saw with Remy Martin and Alonzo, Wildcats should return to the NCAA tournament, provided they're eligible for it. So that's one thing. He has USC right behind them at 22. He said Andy Enfield should have the Trojans back in the NCAA tournament as long as Isaiah Mobley doesn't join his brother Evan in the NBA draft. A top 15 recruiting class highlighted by Reese Dixon Waters will offset the departures. Man, that's a strong statement to say, man, our guy that's going number 2 in the draft is going to get offset by this 18-year-old kid. I would look out for USC. Obviously, Enfield won Coach of the Year. They haven't had too hot of a history of being a great basketball school. So especially if Isaiah Mobley, who had a great end of the year, if he does go to the draft, that's going to be 2 big losses for USC. So I would keep an eye on them. And then this last Pac-12 team, he has Oregon at 24. Dana Altman is the best at reloading his roster each offseason via the transfer market. So it's safe to assume he'll find enough good pieces to supplement a core of Will Richardson and Eric Williams, both of whom averaged double figures last year. Man, I would put Oregon a lot higher. When does Dana Altman not have this team ready to go? It's really unreal.
The best coach in Pac-12.
I absolutely agree.
That man does not miss, as they say.
I say give Mick Cronin a little more time because he's the first coach to take a team to the Final Four and since Dana Altman. So, they've both gone to one Final Four now. So, a little bit of a dogfight. Maybe he's building some. UCLA obviously has that pedigree of, Bill Walton. If you walk into UCLA, they have that trophy room of just national championship after national championship. And you heard the UCLA players before that Final Four game, and, it was a fantastic game. They said, we know we're not going to hang a banner if, we make the Final Four. At UCLA, you hang banners if you win championships. So, they have that pedigree. Maybe Mick Cronin's building something out there, and this Final Four is just the start. You really hope so if you're the Pac-12, because then if you're ASU, you get a chance to, kind of take that monkey, take down that. We always played Arizona so well. Those years where they're the number 2 team in the country, even if ASU below 500, you know it's going to be a good game, and you have a chance to beat that number 2 team.
Yeah, and it won't be that rivalry, but after these 2-3 years I've been at Arizona State, UCLA has been on the come up in basketball from where they were, and for the past year and a half, I'll go to say they have played us well, and there's some tough games, and Pac-12 games are always gritty when we're in the stadium yelling at the Bruins or whoever's playing us. But I mean, you can see if Bobby Hurley gets back on track, which we'll talk about very shortly. Why not? You can see a little UCLA ASU bad blood. I like it.
Absolutely, and the football games have been really good recently too. It would be a great rivalry because Arizona, obviously their football team was awful, and they're more of a basketball school, but it's kind of hard to get in rivalries with Colorado and Utah just because they're newer, and we haven't been playing them for the last 30 years in the Pac-10, and there wasn't the Pac-8 beforehand, but so we kind of talked about the rest of the Pac-12. We didn't really talk specifically about ASU and where we think they'll be, but this is what I have to say. This is a very weird season. We saw that with a lot of other sports around the country. There's now 4 transfers leaving ASU. I have those names right in front of me. It is Chris Austin, Tayshawn Cherry, Jalen House, and the Pavlov Suspis guy. He was a 4-star recruit, but that is 4 people that are leaving. They do have 2 transfers coming in, AJ Brahma and then Jay Heath. They signed the 4-star center. I forgot his name. I do not have it up. Yeah, Enoch, I think his name is. It doesn't have it on. Maybe he's a class of 2022, actually. And then he might be reclassifying if I'm not crazy. Yeah, so he's a class of 2022, the number 32 overall center, Enoch Bokeye. I'm sorry for any mispronunciation. So that's going to be a great commit. But so, we're getting some players back. It was at the very end of the season, it was a little scary. We talked about could Bobby Hurley leave? We got some bigger signings, so I don't think Bobby Hurley is going to leave. There's definitely some speculation, with the thing with the booster. So, what do you think? Obviously some names were big, like Jalen House is a big loss, but at the end of the day, he's not going to get you to where you're going. He's not going to be the starting point guard really if you want to win a Pac-12 championship.
No, yeah, I agree with that. I think he's a great addition to wherever he's going to go. He's going to provide. I could see him
playing GCU because you know why? His sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. His high school teammate, guess who it was? Javon Blackshear, the star guard for GCU. Him and House played the 1 and the 2 together at high school. They played point guard and shooting guard. So watch out for Jalen House going to play with Blackshear over at GCU.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good take right there. Great info backstory.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you out. That's just me. I'm from Arizona, so I knew where he went to high school.
That's great. Yeah, I can see him going to GCU. Tayshawn Cherry is there as well. We played
the whole year without Cherry. I don't think that's going to be a huge loss.
Yeah, that's true. He actually was gone for most. But I think a lot of these transfers, in and out right now. This is all part of Bobby Hurley's little home renovation. He's revamping this team right now, and he will continue to do so. I'm excited. I think I just thought about this when we were mentioning the center that we just got. I'm pretty sure he's from Canada. Do you think Lou Dort had anything to do with that?
No, but I saw he did tweet at him. Lou Dort did tweet at him after the commitment. I did see that.
Lou Dort was from Montreal as well, and we could be. I like this little angle we have up there. We got some great players from them, and I think we could utilize that. We still have plenty of time for Bobby Hurley to build this team. I think you're going to see a lot of roster changes to come. I'm excited.
Sorry, I got something on the tip of my nose right here. Like I said, none of these players are going to be reasons you win Pac-12 championships, so not huge losses. I think there was definitely a question mark, but the big thing is now is there used to be when you transferred, there used to be a year where you would have to sit out and so then you would really reconsider transferring. And, it's not like that anymore. So, I don't know if Jalen House was told, hey, you're probably going to have to come off the bench next year. And he said, screw that. I'm going somewhere else. And there's no consequence where, I heard, there's no competition for that starting spot. How Pavlo, he never played ever. So he got in
33 minutes
all year. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, and then we forgot to mention actually Marcus Bagley in a really, really weird fashion declared for the draft. And then about 3 hours later, said, just to say all my options are still open, as if, he's potential. Because he said he said in his commitment declaration for the NBA draft, he said, as much as I would love to play another year of college, because I think he feels, he got robbed a little bit of a real season with fans. As much as I would love to, I owe it to myself and my family to explore all options. With that being said, I am declaring for the 2021 NBA draft. And then I'll try to find the exact tweet and his exact quote. Let me find his exact quote before. Oh, I just looked up Marcus.
Said like all options
are still on the table or something like that. Yeah. So his announcement to the draft was, playing basketball at Arizona State has been a childhood dream come true, because he's from Arizona. I would like to thank Coach Hurley and the staff for the opportunity. I would also like to thank my family, teammates, trainers, academic advisors, and everyone involved for making my freshman year unforgettable. As much as I would love to play college basketball for another year, I feel that I owe it to myself and my family to explore all of my options. With that being said, I have decided to take the next step and declare for the 2021 NBA draft. So that was 10 hours ago. And then 6 hours ago, so 4 hours later, he said, to be clear, all is in all capitals, all my options are still open. Meaning, okay, I just declared for the draft, but I still could come back to college. So something to keep an eye on. I highly doubt he'll come back because he's projected to go like top 15, top 20. But that's something to watch. I just have a question of who this team's starting point guard is going to be. That scares me. Holland Woods? No, thank you.
I mean, yeah, I think with this Marcus Bagley situation, declaring for the NBA draft, and then just saying just so everyone is sure, I could also I could do anything I want basically. I could do whatever
until he signs with an agent.
Yeah, and he has. I don't think he has signed with an agent yet, but
he'd be done.
I think he's just he's doing what Remy did last year. Obviously, this is at he's on a way higher scale than what Remy did last year, but he's testing the water, and that's been made clear by all of his options are still being taken considerate. And, it's something to look for, and I guess pray if you're a Sundell fan, because odds of him coming back are pretty slim, just based on him and Josh Christopher. We'll see.
It's we have a lot of the thing I'm a little bit worried about is it feels that we have a lot of role players coming in. I'm really excited for this guy from Robert Morris. We mentioned him last week. He averaged 24 and 10 at Robert Morris, which is just absolutely absurd. I don't care what school you're playing at, because that's a Division I school. So it sounds like we're just bringing in a lot of role players, and then that guy, hopefully he's really good, but is he ready to carry a Pac-12, Power 5 conference school? Probably not. I still have some question marks. It's good to know that, with the signing of a few recruits, Hurley wouldn't be doing that if he knew he was on his way out. It's not fair to the kid. It's not fair to himself, to the ASU program to do that. So it looks like Hurley is here to stay. And so the questions are kind of off the table, but, it's going to be interesting. We saw UCLA is projected to be good again. I'm still questioning USC. I don't know how good they're going to be. U of A is going to be good, sadly. Oregon, of course, is going to be good. Don't count out Colorado. Colorado's been good for the last 3 years in a row. Washington always seems to be terrible. Cal, I think, is going to be bad. They lost Matt Bradley. We both liked him a lot. He's built really strong. Stanford's going to lose a lot of pieces. So there's going to be some bottom teams in the Pac-12. ASU is probably going to be projected to be in that 5 to 6 spot next year. Obviously, expectations didn't go well this year, projected number 2. But, anything else you want to say? Cap off the year of college basketball?
yeah, like you said at the beginning, the first thing that ran through my mind, you go, yeah, well, it's pretty sad that college basketball is over. Well, that's how I was feeling for Arizona State season, literally like
at Christmas,
5 weeks in. So now you all feel my pain. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it was a great tournament. Some pretty crazy games I'll never forget, and we just cannot. Don't forget about that VCU Oregon game, guys. It was like pretty special. Go back and watch
1-0.
Go back and watch it.
Oregon pitched the first ever shutout in NCAA tournament
Literally
history.
insane. Like just like one of a kind.
So that is all the time we have today. Thank you for watching. Wills, Josh, make sure to check us out at Dash Sports TV on all social media. Our website, dashsports.tv. That's our website. Make sure you can follow Josh or I on the screen, our handles. We should be back next week for episode 28. We will keep you updated. If you follow us on Twitter, you'll know when all our shows are. So thank you guys for watching and have a great day.